Elena Brooks stood frozen at the altar in her wedding dress, seconds from becoming Mrs. Ryan Caldwell, until she heard the truth that destroyed everything. Just minutes before, she'd overheard her groom laughing with his friend about the cruel bet that brought them here. Seduce the poor girl, make her fall in love, get her to the altar. She was never his bride. She was his conquest. Now, with 200 guests waiting and her mother's desperate hope hanging in the balance, Elena had to decide. Walk down that aisle into a lie, or find the courage to burn it all down. Like this video and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The bridal suite smelled like gardenias and expensive champagne, but Elena couldn't breathe. She stood in front of the full-length mirror, staring at a stranger. The dress was perfect. Everyone said so. Ivory silk that cost more than her mother made in 3 months, delicate lace sleeves, a train that pooled on the marble floor like liquid moonlight. Her dark hair had been twisted into an elegant updo, tiny pearls woven through it by a stylist whose hourly rate made Elena's stomach hurt. Her makeup was flawless, her hands were trembling. "You look like a princess," her mother whispered from the velvet settee near the window. Margaret Brooks had tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. "Your father would have been so proud." Elena's throat tightened. She turned away from the mirror, not wanting to see her own eyes anymore. They looked too wide, too frightened, like an animal that knew it was being led to slaughter but couldn't figure out how to escape. "Mom, I know you're nervous." Margaret stood, smoothing her powder blue dress. She'd bought it at a discount store but had it altered to fit perfectly. Even now, even here, she was trying so hard to look like she belonged. "Every bride is nervous. But Ryan loves you, sweetheart. He's giving us a life we never could have dreamed of." Us. Not just Elena. Ryan's financial support had already started. The new apartment for Margaret, the medical bills quietly paid, the job lined up at his family's foundation. The debt collectors had finally stopped calling. For the first time since Elena's father died when she was 12, her mother could sleep through the night without crying over bills spread across the kitchen table. "He's a good man," Margaret continued, crossing the room to take Elena's hands. Her palms were rough from years of cleaning houses, her knuckles swollen from arthritis. "I know it happened fast, but sometimes that's how it works. When you know, you know." Elena wanted to tell her that she didn't know, that the past 6 months with Ryan Caldwell had felt like being swept up in a hurricane, beautiful and thrilling and completely out of her control, that she'd said yes to his proposal not because she was sure, but because she was tired. Tired of struggling, tired of watching her mother's health deteriorate from stress, tired of feeling invisible in a world that only valued people like the Caldwells. But how could she say any of that when her mother was looking at her like she'd just been handed salvation? "You're going to be happy," Margaret said firmly, squeezing Elena's hands. "You deserve to be happy." A knock at the door interrupted them. Jessica Chen, one of the bridesmaids Ryan had chosen from his social circle, poked her head in. She was gorgeous in her champagne-colored dress, her smile bright and sharp as glass. 15 minutes, ladies. Elena, you ready?" "Almost," Elena managed. Jessica's gaze swept over her, assessing, and something flickered in her expression. Pity? Amusement? It was gone before Elena could identify it. "You look beautiful. Ryan's a lucky guy." The words sounded hollow, scripted. "I'm just going to touch up my lipstick in the bathroom, then we'll line up." She disappeared into the suite's marble bathroom, leaving the door slightly ajar. Elena heard water running, the click of a compact opening. Margaret was fussing with Elena's veil now, adjusting the delicate fabric. "I can't believe my baby girl is getting married in a place like this. The Grand Stone Hotel. I saw the pictures in magazines, but never thought I'd actually walk through these doors." The Grand Stone was legendary, a historic property overlooking the city, where old money mingled with new, where wedding receptions cost more than most people's annual salaries. Ryan had insisted. "Only the best for my girl," he'd said, kissing her forehead like she was something precious and fragile. Elena's chest felt tight again. She crossed to the window, needing air, needing space. 11 floors below, the city spread out in afternoon sunlight, indifferent to her panic. Somewhere down there was the apartment she'd shared with her mother. The community college, where she'd taken night classes while working double shifts at the diner, the life she'd been living before Ryan Caldwell walked in and changed everything. He'd come into the diner on a Tuesday night, expensive suit slightly rumpled, looking like he'd had a long day. Elena had served him coffee and a burger, nothing special, but he'd smiled at her, really looked at her, and asked her name. They talked while the place emptied out. He was charming, funny, self-deprecating about his privileged upbringing. He'd asked for her number. She'd given it, not believing he'd actually call, but he did. And then he'd pursued her with an intensity that felt like being seen for the first time in her life. "Elena?" Her mother's voice was concerned. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" "Nothing, I need a minute." She slipped out of the bridal suite before Margaret could stop her, needing to move, needing to think. The hallway was empty. Elegant cream walls and soft lighting, thick carpet that muffled her footsteps. She walked without direction, just needing to be anywhere but in that room, with her mother's desperate hope and her own suffocating doubt. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Why did she feel like she was drowning? She found herself near a service hallway, the elegant facade giving way to plain walls and fluorescent lighting. She could hear voices ahead, male voices, laughing. She should turn back, but something made her pause. "Still can't believe you actually did it." The voice was unfamiliar, young, amused. "I thought you were full of it when you made the bet." Elena froze. "I told you I could close it." Ryan's voice, unmistakable. That confident drawl she'd found charming once. But there was something different in his tone now, something she'd never heard when he spoke to her. Cruel amusement, pride. 6 months from first contact to wedding day. That's got to be some kind of record. "You're insane, man. I mean, she's cute and all, but nothing." Ryan laughed, and the sound made Elena's skin crawl. "That was the whole point. Prove I could make a nobody fall in love with me. Make her believe she was special. Get her all the way to the altar." The floor tilted under Elena's feet. She reached out, pressing her palm against the wall to steady herself. "The look on Chad's face when I told him," Ryan continued, "worth every second of playing the devoted boyfriend. He didn't think I could do it, not with someone that far outside our circle. Thought I'd get bored and bail. To be fair, you did get pretty method with it. Meeting the mom, paying her bills, that was a nice touch. Please." Ryan's voice was dismissive. "The bills were nothing. Pocket change, and the mom ate it up. You're such a good man, Ryan. My daughter's so lucky. Made it almost too easy." Elena's vision blurred. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. "So what happens now?" the other voice asked. "You're actually going through with the wedding." "Had to, didn't I? That was the bet. Get her to the altar. Besides, the optics are great. My mother's thrilled. I'm settling down with a nice, wholesome girl from a humble background. Makes the family look good, especially with the foundation launch next month." He paused. "We'll do the wedding. I'll let it run for 6 months, maybe a year. Then I'll find a way out. Incompatibility, whatever. I'll be generous with the divorce settlement. I'm not a monster. She'll end up better off than when I found her." Elena's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her expensive dress pooling around her like a shroud, one hand pressed against her mouth to keep from making a sound. A bet. It was all a bet. Every moment between them, every late-night conversation, every thoughtful gift, every time he'd looked at her like she hung the moon, it was all a lie. A performance. A game he'd played with someone else's heart, someone else's life, to prove a point to his rich friends. She didn't know how long she sat there. Time felt broken, moving in strange jumps. At some point she heard footsteps retreating, voices fading. She was alone in the service hallway, her wedding dress wrinkled, her carefully styled hair starting to come loose, her entire world demolished. She needed to get up, needed to think. But her body felt impossibly heavy, weighted down by shock and shame, and a grief so profound it threatened to split her open. How could she have been so stupid? All the signs had been there, if she'd wanted to see them. The way his friends looked at her. Not with warmth, but with that same amused pity she'd seen in Jessica's eyes. The way Ryan had kept her separate from most of his life, rarely taking her to family events until the engagement was announced. The speed of it all, the intensity that had felt like a fairy tale, but was really just a predator's efficiency. She'd wanted so badly to believe she could be special to someone like him, that someone from his world could look at her, ordinary, broke, invisible Elena Brooks, and see something worth loving. But he'd never seen her at all. She was just a challenge, a nobody he could mold and manipulate and bring to the altar to win a bet. Miss Brooks? Elena's head snapped up. A man stood at the end of the hallway, watching her with an expression that was hard to read. He was tall, maybe early 30s, wearing an expensive dark suit that made Ryan's designer wardrobe look cheap. His face was striking, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that missed nothing, black hair pushed back from his forehead. He looked like he'd stepped out of a different world entirely, one where money was so old it didn't need to announce itself. Elena's voice cracked. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. He moved toward her, not rushing, but covering the distance in long strides, and crouched down to her level. This close, she could see his eyes were actually a very dark blue, almost black in this lighting. They studied her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. "You shouldn't be on the floor in that dress," he said quietly. His voice was deep, controlled, with an accent she couldn't place. Maybe Italian, maybe Spanish. "Here." He offered his hand. Elena stared at it, her brain still trying to process basic functions. "I'm not going to hurt you," he added, something gentler entering his expression. "But you look like you've had a shock, and this isn't a good place to fall apart. Too many people." She took his hand because she didn't know what else to do. His grip was warm, solid, and he pulled her to her feet with easy strength. She swayed, and his other hand came up to steady her elbow. "Thank you," she whispered. "What happened?" Elena looked up at him, this stranger with kind eyes and expensive shoes, and felt something crack inside her chest. I can't marry him." The man's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his gaze. "Ryan Caldwell?" She nodded, tears finally spilling over. "How did you—" "I saw the wedding announcement. I'm here for—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider. "That doesn't matter. What matters is you look terrified, and I'm guessing there's a reason." The word stuck in her throat. If she said it out loud, it would be real, but it was already real, wasn't it? "It was a bet. All of it. He never loved me, it was a game. To see if he could get someone like me to fall for him." The man's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. For a moment his control slipped and Elena saw something cold and furious flash across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by careful neutrality. "Are you certain?" "I heard him. Just now, talking to a friend. Laughing about it." She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly freezing despite the warm hallway. "My mother's downstairs. She's so happy. She thinks everything we've been through, all the struggling, she thinks I'm finally safe. That we're finally okay. And you don't want to disappoint her." It wasn't a question. Elena met his eyes and saw understanding there, not judgment. "If I call it off, we lose everything. He's been helping her, paying for things we couldn't afford. If I walk away, he'll stop." The man straightened, but kept his hand on her elbow, keeping her steady. "Men like Ryan Caldwell don't give without expecting something in return. You were his investment, his project. If you don't deliver, he'll cut his losses." The blunt assessment should have hurt, but it was actually steadying. This stranger wasn't trying to comfort her or tell her it would be okay. He was just stating facts, treating her like she could handle the truth. "I don't know what to do," Elena admitted. "Yes, you do." His voice was quiet, but absolutely certain. "You know what you need to do. You're just afraid of the cost." She was. She was terrified. Because walking away meant watching her mother's face crumble. It meant going back to the apartment where they couldn't afford to turn on the heat in winter. It meant admitting she'd been a fool, that she'd let herself believe in a fantasy because the alternative, her real life, was too hard to face. But staying meant marrying a man who'd never seen her as human, who'd played with her heart like it was a toy, who'd manipulated her mother's gratitude and her own desperate hope for something better into a sick game for his amusement. "I can't go through with it," she said, the words coming out stronger than she expected. "I can't marry him." The man nodded slowly. "Then don't." "My mother will survive." He cut her off, not unkindly. "She survived before Ryan Caldwell. She'll survive after. But you, if you walk down that aisle knowing what you know, that's something you won't survive. Not intact." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the truth of it settle into her bones. He was right. She could endure poverty, humiliation, struggle. But she couldn't endure becoming a woman who married a man she knew didn't love her, who'd used her for sport. That would kill something essential in her, something she might never get back. "I don't even know your name," she said, opening her eyes. "Adrian." He studied her face. Adrian Russo. The name rang a distant bell, but Elena couldn't place it through the fog of shock. "Why are you helping me, Adrian Russo?" Something complicated crossed his features. "Let's just say I know what it's like to be surrounded by people who see you as a means to an end." He glanced at his watch, then back at her. "You have about 10 minutes before someone comes looking for you. What are you going to do?" Elena looked down at her dress, her hands, the engagement ring that suddenly felt like it was burning her finger. What was she going to do? The smart thing would be to go through with it, smile, say the vows, buy herself time to figure out an exit strategy that didn't leave her mother destitute. The safe thing would be to swallow her hurt and her rage and play along, just like Ryan had been playing all along. But looking at this stranger who'd appeared in her worst moment and told her the hard truth instead of comfortable lies, Elena felt something shift inside her, a spark of anger burning through the shock. Ryan Caldwell had made her feel small, worthless, like she should be grateful he'd even looked at her, much less loved her. But he'd never loved her at all, and if she married him anyway, she'd be telling herself that she agreed with his assessment, that she was nothing, that she deserved to be used. "I'm going to end this," Elena said. Adrian's expression didn't change, but she saw approval in his eyes. "How?" "I don't know yet." She straightened her shoulders, trying to channel even a fraction of the confidence he wore so easily. "But I'm not walking down that aisle." "Good." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card, pressing it into her hand. "When this is over, if you need help, call me." "Why would you—" "Elena!" Jessica's voice echoed from the main hallway. "Elena, where are you? We need to line up." Adrian stepped back, creating distance between them. To anyone watching, they'd just been two strangers who'd crossed paths. But his eyes held hers for one more second, steady and certain. "You're stronger than you think you are," he said quietly. "Don't let him make you forget that." Then he was walking away, disappearing around a corner before Elena could respond. She looked down at the card in her hand. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, just a name and a phone number. No company, no title. Adrian Russo. "There you are." Jessica appeared, slightly out of breath, her expression irritated. "What are you doing back here? Everyone's waiting. Your mother's getting worried." Elena slipped the card into the hidden pocket of her dress and turned to face Jessica. The bridesmaid's eyes swept over her, taking in the slightly disheveled hair, the tear stains on her face. "Are you crying? Elena, your makeup—" "I'm fine." Elena's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I just needed a minute." "Well, you don't have a minute. It's time." Jessica grabbed her arm, steering her back toward the bridal suite with the efficiency of someone used to managing situations. "Come on. We'll fix your face and get you lined up. Ryan's probably pacing a hole in the floor by now." Ryan, who was downstairs right now, probably laughing with his groomsmen, counting down the minutes until he won his bet. Who'd looked her in the eyes last night at the rehearsal dinner and told her she was the best thing that ever happened to him, while knowing it was all a lie. They reached the bridal suite. Elena's mother rushed over, her worried expression melting into relief. "Oh, sweetheart, there you are. I was starting to panic." She cupped Elena's face, studying her. "You've been crying. What's wrong?" Elena opened her mouth, not sure what words would come out. But before she could speak, Jessica was already moving, herding the other bridesmaids, creating controlled chaos. "Wedding jitters, totally normal," Jessica announced briskly, grabbing makeup supplies. "We've got this. 10 minutes to fix her face, and then we're walking." Margaret looked uncertain, but stepped back, letting Jessica take charge. Elena stood motionless as the bridesmaid worked on her makeup, covering the evidence of her breakdown with powder and setting spray. In the mirror, she watched herself disappear again, the scared, hurt woman replaced by the serene bride everyone expected to see. But inside, something was different now. That spark Adrian had seen, the one she'd almost forgotten existed, it was still burning. "Perfect." Jessica stepped back, assessing her work. "You look beautiful. Ryan won't know what hit him." Neither will you, Elena thought. The wedding coordinator appeared, clipboard in hand, all business. Ladies, we're ready. Bridesmaids, please line up in the hallway. Mrs. Brooks, you'll be escorted to your seat. Elena, you'll wait here until you get your cue, then your uncle will walk you down. Her Uncle Tom, Margaret's brother, pressed into service because Elena's father wasn't here to do it. Tom, who'd shown up drunk to Christmas twice and borrowed money he never paid back but was family, so here he was. The bridesmaids filed out in a rustle of champagne-colored silk. Margaret gave Elena one last hug, whispering, "I love you so much, sweetheart. You're going to be so happy." Then she was gone too, and Elena was alone. She walked to the window again, looking down at the city. From up here, people looked like ants, cars like toys, everything small and manageable and far away. She wished she could stay up here forever, suspended in this moment before everything changed. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it from where it had been hidden in the suite, saw a text from a number she didn't recognize. Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice. Not his, not your mother's, yours. A.R. Adrian. Somehow he'd gotten her number. The presumption should have bothered her, but instead she felt steadier. Someone out there, a stranger who owed her nothing, believed she was capable of making her own choice. The door opened. Tom entered, uncomfortable in his rented tux, smelling faintly of whiskey he'd probably nipped from a flask. "Hey, kiddo, ready to do this?" Elena looked at him, this man who was supposed to give her away like she was property being transferred from one owner to another. That's what this whole thing was, wasn't it? Ryan hadn't courted her, he'd acquired her, and now she was supposed to smile and accept the transaction. "Elena, you okay?" She thought about Adrian's question. What was she going to do? "I don't know," she said honestly. Tom shifted awkwardly. It's normal to be nervous. Your aunt was a wreck before our wedding, but once you're up there, it's fine." Was it fine? Had it been fine for her aunt, marrying this man who drank too much and couldn't hold down a job? Or had she just learned to live with disappointment? The coordinator reappeared. "Elena, you're up in 2 minutes. Final checks?" Elena looked down at herself. The dress that wasn't her choice, Ryan had taken her to the boutique his mother recommended and steered her toward this one, saying it was perfect. She'd look like a princess. The flowers, white roses and peonies, his favorite. The venue, the menu, the music, all of it chosen by Ryan or his mother, with Elena nodding along because she didn't think she had the right to ask for what she wanted. She'd been erasing herself for 6 months, trying to fit into the space Ryan had created for her, and she'd almost succeeded. "Elena?" The coordinator's voice was getting impatient. "We need to go." Tom offered his arm. Elena stared at it. This was it. The moment of decision. She could take his arm, let him walk her down that aisle, say the vows to a man who'd never loved her, and lock herself into a life built on lies. Or she could... What? What was the alternative? Walk away with nothing. Hurt her mother. Face everyone's questions and judgment. Go back to struggling and scraping by and watching her mother's health deteriorate from stress. But at least she'd be free. At least she'd be herself. "I can't do this," Elena said. Tom blinked. "What?" "I can't marry him." The words came easier this time. "I'm sorry, but I can't." The coordinator's eyes went wide. "What are you... We have 200 guests seated. The ceremony is starting in 90 seconds. "I know." Elena's heart was pounding, but her voice stayed steady. "I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't go through with it." "Elena, think about what you're saying." Tom's face had gone pale. "Your mother, all these people, the money Ryan spent, I don't care." And suddenly, shockingly, it was true. She didn't care about the money, the guests, the humiliation. All of that was external, temporary. What mattered was that if she walked down that aisle, she'd be choosing to betray herself in a way she couldn't come back from. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger, a massive princess-cut diamond that had always felt too heavy, too showy. She held it out to the coordinator, who just stared at it like it might explode. "Please give this to Ryan. Tell him..." "What? What could she possibly say?" "Tell him I heard everything." She didn't wait for a response. She grabbed her phone, hiked up her dress, and walked out of the bridal suite in the wrong direction, away from the ceremony, away from the life that had been planned for her, towards something unknown and terrifying and hers. Behind her, she heard Tom calling her name, the coordinator speaking urgently into her headset. But Elena didn't stop. She found the service elevator, the one the hotel staff used, and jabbed the button. The doors opened. She stepped inside, pressed the button for the ground floor, and watched the hallway disappear as the doors slid closed. Only then did she let herself shake. The service elevator lurched downward, and Elena's stomach dropped with it. She watched the floor numbers descend, 10, 9, 8, and tried to remember how to breathe. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished metal doors, wild-eyed, mascara-smudged, still wearing a wedding dress that cost more than she used to make in 6 months. What had she just done? The elevator dinged at the ground floor. The doors opened onto a narrow hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and coffee. 2 hotel staff members looked up from their conversation, their eyes widening at the sight of her. "Is there a back exit?" Elena asked, her voice coming out smaller than she wanted. The older woman, her name tag reading Gloria, exchanged a glance with her coworker. "Honey, are you okay? I need to leave. Please." Gloria's expression softened into something like understanding. She'd probably seen her share of wedding day disasters working at a place like this. Through there, down the hall, past the kitchen, fire exit leads to the loading area. "Thank you." Elena hitched up her dress and ran. Her shoes, delicate ivory heels that Jessica had insisted matched the dress perfectly, clicked against the linoleum. She passed confused kitchen staff, dodged a cart stacked with dishes, and slammed through the fire exit into harsh afternoon sunlight. The loading area was empty, except for a few parked delivery trucks. Elena stood there, breathing hard, reality starting to crash down on her in waves. Upstairs, 200 people were sitting in their seats waiting for a wedding that wasn't going to happen. Her mother was in the front row, probably smoothing her dress nervously, checking her watch. Ryan was at the altar in his custom tux, expecting his bet to pay off any second now. And she was here, hiding behind a dumpster in a wedding dress, with nowhere to go. Her phone started buzzing. She looked down at the screen, her mother calling. Elena stared at the name, her finger hovering over the answer button, but she couldn't make herself press it. What would she even say? The phone went to voicemail. 3 seconds later, it started ringing again. She turned it off. A black car pulled into the loading area, moving slowly, like it was looking for something. Elena pressed herself against the wall, suddenly aware of how exposed she was. The car stopped about 20 feet away. The back door opened. Adrian Russo stepped out. He ditched his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves, and he looked completely calm, like finding runaway brides in loading docks was just another Tuesday for him. His eyes found hers immediately. "Need a ride?" Elena's laugh came out broken, half sob. "How did you—" "I was watching. Saw you leave through the service entrance." He walked toward her, moving carefully, like she might bolt. "That was brave what you did up there." "Brave?" Elena shook her head, feeling hysterical laughter bubbling up. "I just ruined my life, my mother's life. I abandoned 200 people and humiliated Ryan in front of everyone he knows. That's not brave. That's insane." Ryan Caldwell humiliated himself the second he made that bet. Adrian's voice was flat, factual. "You just refused to participate in his game." "My mom," Elena's voice cracked. "She was so happy. She thought we were finally going to be okay." "You will be okay, just not the way she expected." He glanced back at his car, where a driver waited patiently. "Come on. You can't stay here. I don't even know you." "No, you don't." He met her eyes. "But you trusted your instincts with me earlier, and you were right. Trust them now. Let me get you somewhere safe, somewhere you can think." Every warning bell Elena had ever been taught should be screaming. Don't get in cars with strangers. Don't trust men you just met. Don't. But she'd trusted Ryan, hadn't she? She'd known him for 6 months, met his mother, been integrated into his life, and it had all been a carefully constructed lie. At least Adrian wasn't pretending. He wasn't promising her anything except a ride away from this nightmare. "Okay," she heard herself say. She let him guide her to the car. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, didn't react at all to the bride climbing into his back seat. Adrian slid in beside her, maintaining a careful distance between them, and the car pulled away from the grandstone. Elena watched through the tinted windows as the hotel disappeared behind them. Somewhere up there, chaos was erupting. The coordinator would have found Tom by now, told him Elena was gone. They'd tell Ryan, they'd tell her mother. There would be confusion, anger, people trying to call her, trying to understand. But she was here, in this quiet car, the world sliding past outside like it belonged to someone else's life. "Where are we going?" she asked. "My place. It's secure, private. You can clean up, change clothes, figure out your next move." Adrian was looking at his phone, typing something quickly. "Do you have somewhere you can stay, friends, family besides your mother?" Elena tried to think. Her college roommate had moved to Seattle last year. Her cousin lived 3 states away. The few friends she'd had before Ryan had slowly drifted when she got too busy with his world, his schedule, his life. "Not really," she admitted. Adrian nodded like he'd expected that answer. Caldwell's type always isolates their targets, makes you dependent, easier to control. "I wasn't—" Elena started to argue, then stopped. Because he was right, wasn't he? Ryan had slowly absorbed all her time, introduced her to his friends who never quite became her friends, suggested she quit the diner because it was beneath her now, encouraged her to drop her night classes because he wanted to spend evenings with her. She'd thought it was romance, but it was strategy. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them against her lap, trying to stop it, but her whole body was starting to catch up with what she'd done. "It's the adrenaline crash," Adrian said quietly. "You've been running on it since you overheard him. Now it's wearing off and reality's setting in. It's normal." "How do you know?" "I've seen it before." He didn't elaborate, and something in his tone made Elena not want to push. They drove through the city in silence. Elena watched familiar streets give way to unfamiliar ones, the buildings getting taller, sleeker, more expensive. They pulled into an underground garage beneath a high-rise that looked like it ate money for breakfast. "This is where you live?" Elena asked. "One of the places I live." Of course. Of course he had multiple residences. She followed him out of the car, her dress dragging on the concrete, feeling more ridiculous by the second. They took a private elevator, one that required a keycard, up to the top floor. The doors opened directly into Adrian's apartment, and Elena stopped breathing for a second. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Modern furniture that probably cost more than cars. Art on the walls that looked like it belonged in museums. Everything sleek and expensive and so far removed from her world that she might as well have stepped onto another planet. "I know it's a lot," Adrian said, watching her reaction. "But you'll have privacy here. No one knows you're here, and no one can get up without my authorization." A tall woman appeared from another room, her silver hair pulled back severely, wearing an elegant black dress. She looked like she managed empires before breakfast. "This is Sophia, my housekeeper," Adrian introduced. "Sophia, this is Elena. She needs somewhere to stay for a bit. Can you set up the guest room?" Sophia's sharp eyes took in Elena's wedding dress, her tear-stained face, and the whole situation with a single glance. But her expression remained neutral, professional. "Of course. Miss Elena, if you'll follow me, I'll show you where you can freshen up." Elena looked at Adrian, suddenly uncertain again. "Go ahead," he said. "I'll make some calls, buy us some time. We'll talk when you're ready." She followed Sophia down a hallway lined with more expensive art into a bedroom that was bigger than the entire apartment Elena shared with her mother. The attached bathroom had a rainfall shower and a tub that could fit 3 people. "There are robes in the closet," Sophia said. "I'll find you something to change into. What size are you?" 6? Sometimes an 8? Sophia nodded and disappeared. Elena stood in the middle of this palace of a bathroom, still in her wedding dress, and finally let herself cry. She cried for the life she'd thought she was going to have, for her mother's broken hope, for the girl she'd been 6 months ago, lonely and struggling, but at least honest, for every moment with Ryan that she'd believed was real. When the tears finally stopped, she felt hollowed out but clearer. She unzipped the dress. It took forever, all those tiny buttons Jessica had done up so carefully, and stepped out of it. The dress pooled on the floor like a collapsed ghost. Elena kicked it away. She showered until the hot water started to cool, washing away the expensive hairspray, the careful makeup, all of it. When she emerged, Sophia had left clothes folded on the bed, Soft yoga pants, a cashmere sweater, even fresh underwear still in packaging. Everything fit perfectly. Elena found Adrian in what he called his office, but looked more like a command center. 3 monitors on a massive desk, papers spread out, phone to his ear. He was speaking in rapid Italian. At least Elena thought it was Italian, his tone sharp and authoritative. He saw her and held up one finger, wrapping up the conversation. Yes, I understand. Handle it. He ended the call and turned to face her fully. Better? I don't know what I am, Elena admitted. She felt numb, disconnected, like she was watching herself from a distance. Thank you, though, for the clothes, for everything. I'll pay you back somehow. Don't worry about that. Adrian gestured to a leather couch. Sit. Have you eaten? Elena tried to remember. Breakfast had been impossible, her stomach too tight with nerves. Not today. He picked up a phone on his desk, pressed a button. Sophia, can you bring some food up? Nothing heavy. And tea. He looked at Elena. You drink tea? Sure. When Sophia arrived with a tray, delicate sandwiches, fruit, a pot of tea that smelled like flowers, Elena realized she was starving. She ate without tasting anything, just fueling her body mechanically while Adrian sat across from her, waiting. Your phone's been off, he said finally. They're looking for you. I know. Your mother called the police, filed a missing persons report. Elena's hand froze halfway to her mouth. She what? She thinks something happened to you, that you were kidnapped or hurt. The police are reviewing hotel security footage now. Adrian's tone was matter-of-fact. You need to call her. Let her know you're safe. I can't. If I call her, she'll want to know where I am, why I left. And you'll have to tell her the truth. Adrian leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Elena, I know you want to protect her, but she deserves to know what kind of man Ryan Caldwell is, what he was willing to do. It'll break her heart. Her heart's already breaking right now, thinking you're lying in a ditch somewhere. His voice was gentle but firm. Which do you think is worse? Knowing her daughter escaped a man who didn't love her, or imagining her daughter dead? Elena closed her eyes. He was right. Of course he was right. I don't know what to say to her. The truth, just the truth. Adrian stood, pulled out his phone. Use mine. Your number's probably being monitored by now. Reporters, police, whoever. This line is secure. Elena took the phone with shaking hands. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then dialed her mother's cell. Margaret answered on the first ring. Hello? Who is this? Mom, it's me. The sound that came through the phone was something between a sob and a gasp. Elena? Oh my, where are you? Are you hurt? The police are here. They're saying, I'm fine, I'm safe. I'm sorry, I should have called sooner. What happened? Did someone take you? Everyone's saying you disappeared right before the ceremony. Ryan's the reason I left. Elena forced the words out. Mom, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be hard to hear. There was a pause. Then Margaret's voice, quieter, scared. What do you mean? Elena told her. Everything. Overheard conversation in the hallway, the bet, the cruel laughter, the way Ryan had used both of them. Her mother listened in silence, and that silence was somehow worse than any reaction. Mom, say something. I don't... Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. I don't understand. He was so kind to us. He paid for my medication. He found me that job. It was all part of the game, making you grateful, making you invested in the relationship. It made it easier to control me. Oh, baby. Her mother started crying, and the sound cut through Elena like glass. I pushed you toward him. I kept telling you how lucky you were, how good he was for you. I was so relieved we'd finally have some security. I didn't see... You didn't know. Neither of us knew. Where are you now? Are you really safe? Elena looked at Adrian, who was giving her privacy by studying some papers on his desk, but was clearly listening. I'm with someone who helped me. Someone I can trust. Who? Elena, you can't just... Mom, I need you to trust me. I'm safe, I'm not hurt, and I'm going to figure this out. But I can't come home right now. Ryan's probably looking for me, and I can't see him. I can't. The police want to talk to you. They need to know you weren't taken against your will. I'll call them. I'll explain. Elena rubbed her face with her free hand. But Mom, there's going to be fallout from this. People are going to talk. Ryan's going to, I don't know what he's going to do. Let them talk. Her mother's voice suddenly hardened in a way Elena rarely heard. That man lied to us, used us, made us feel grateful for his scraps while he was laughing at you behind your back. He doesn't get to be the victim here. The apartment he got you, the job, we'll manage. We always have. Margaret took a shaky breath. I don't care about losing his help. I care about you. Are you really okay? Elena thought about it. Was she okay? Her life was in shambles. She'd publicly humiliated herself. She had no job, no prospects, no plan. But she also wasn't trapped, wasn't pretending, wasn't slowly erasing herself to fit into a life that was never meant for her. I'm getting there, she said. They talked for a few more minutes, Elena promising to check in daily, Margaret making her swear she wasn't with anyone dangerous. When Elena finally hung up, she felt lighter and heavier at the same time. That went better than I expected, Adrian said. She's stronger than people think. Elena set his phone down carefully. I should call the police next, shouldn't I? Already handled. At her surprised look, he shrugged. I made a call while you were in the shower. Explained you'd left of your own free will, that you were safe, and that you'd provide a statement tomorrow. They canceled the missing persons alert. You can just do that. I can when I make a significant donation to their annual fundraiser. He said it without any smugness, just stating a fact. Money opens doors, Elena. It's not fair, but it's reality. She should probably be bothered by the casual corruption, but right now she was just grateful not to have to deal with police tonight. Who are you, Adrian Russo? Really? He studied her for a moment, like he was deciding how much to tell her. My family has certain business interests. Import, export, real estate, investments. We're old money, very private, and very good at getting what we want. There was something careful in how he said it, like he was choosing his words precisely. Elena had the sense there was a lot more he wasn't saying, but she was too exhausted to push. Why are you helping me? Because you needed help. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. He stood, moving to the windows. The sun was setting, painting the city in gold and shadow. But I'll tell you this much. I knew your father. Elena went very still. What? Daniel Brooks. He worked security for one of my family's properties about 15 years ago. He was a good man, honest, hardworking, loyal. Adrian kept his gaze on the city. There was an incident, a robbery that went wrong, turned violent. Your father put himself between the thieves and the people he was protecting. He died saving my younger sister's life. The room tilted. Elena gripped the arm of the couch, trying to process this. My father died in a car accident. That's what my mother always said. Your mother was told to say that. For her protection. For yours. Adrian finally turned to face her. The men who killed your father were part of a larger organization. We dealt with them, but we couldn't be sure they wouldn't retaliate against Daniel's family. So we created a cover story, moved you and your mother across the country, set up a trust fund that was supposed to take care of you. A trust fund? Elena shook her head. We didn't have anything. After my dad died, we could barely afford rent. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us fed. Adrian's expression darkened. The lawyer who was supposed to manage the trust embezzled it. We didn't find out until years later. By then, he'd disappeared and the money was gone. We tried to track you down to make it right, but your mother had moved several times, changed her name back to her maiden name. Brooks is her maiden name. She never took my dad's name because they weren't married yet. They were going to get married that summer. That explains why we couldn't find you. Adrian moved back to his desk, pulled out a file folder. I've been looking for Daniel Brooks's family for 5 years. When I saw the wedding announcement with your name and your mother's, I recognized the photos she'd kept from when she worked at our property. I knew it was you. Elena's mind was reeling. So you came to the wedding to what? To meet you, to finally tell you the truth about your father. His jaw tightened. I didn't expect to find you marrying Ryan Caldwell. When I saw that, I had to make sure you knew what kind of man he was. You knew about the bet? I know everything about the Caldwells. They run in my circles, unfortunately. He said it with distaste. Ryan's father and mine have had dealings, not pleasant ones. The Caldwells have a reputation for being sharks, charming when it suits them, vicious when you're no longer useful. And you just let me walk into that? I didn't know about the specific bet until this afternoon. One of my people picked up chatter from Ryan's friends, bits of conversation. By the time I confirmed it, you were already in the bridal suite getting ready. Adrian's voice was rough with something that might have been anger or regret. I came to warn you. I didn't know if you'd listen to a stranger, but I had to try. Elena pressed her hands to her face, trying to absorb all of this. Her father hadn't died in a random accident. He'd died a hero, saving someone's life. There had been money meant to take care of them, money that had been stolen. And this man, this stranger who'd appeared in her worst moment, had been looking for her for years because he felt his family owed her a debt. I don't know what to do with this, she said finally. You don't have to do anything with it right now. Adrian closed the folder, set it aside. Right now, you need to rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. What next steps? I don't have a job, I can't go back to the apartment. Even if Ryan wasn't paying for it, everyone in that building will know what happened by tomorrow. I have no money, no... Elena. Adrian's voice cut through her spiral. You have more than you think. You have your mother, you have your integrity, and you have me. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. He held up a hand before she could protest. My family owes you a debt. Your father saved my sister's life. The least I can do is make sure his daughter doesn't suffer because of our failure to protect what he left behind. This is too much. It's not charity. It's restitution. His tone left no room for argument. We'll establish a new trust in your name. What your father's trust should have been worth if it had been properly managed and invested over the past 15 years. It'll be enough to support you and your mother comfortably while you figure out what you want to do with your life. Elena stared at him, looking for the catch, the angle, the hidden cost. But his expression was completely serious, no trace of the manipulation she'd learned to recognize in Ryan's face. Why do I feel like there's something you're not telling me? Adrian almost smiled. Because you're smart. And you're right. There are things I'm not telling you, but they're my secrets, not yours, and they don't change what I'm offering. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. The guest room is yours for as long as you want it. He moved toward the door, giving her space. Sophia will show you where everything is. Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. He left before Elena could respond. She sat alone in his office, surrounded by luxury she'd never dreamed of, processing revelations about a father she barely remembered and a life that should have been hers. Her phone, her actual phone, not Adrian's, sat in her purse where she'd stashed it before leaving the hotel. She pulled it out, turned it on. The screen immediately exploded with notifications. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. She scrolled through them with morbid curiosity. Jessica. Where are you? Everyone's freaking out, Tom. Call me now. Numbers she didn't recognize, probably reporters who'd somehow gotten her contact information. And then, Ryan. 5 missed calls, 3 voicemails. Her finger hovered over the voicemail button. She shouldn't listen. She knew she shouldn't, but some masochistic part of her needed to know. His first message was concerned, confused. Elena, where are you? Everyone's worried. Just call me back, okay? Let me know you're safe. The second was angrier. This isn't funny. You're embarrassing both of us. I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to get back here and explain yourself. The third message made her blood run cold. I know you heard something. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. I don't know what you think you heard, but you're making a huge mistake. Everything I've done for you, for your mother, you really want to throw that away over a misunderstanding? Call me back. We'll talk about this like adults. I'm sure we can work something out. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Elena deleted the messages, her hands shaking again. A soft knock at the door made her jump. Sophia appeared with more tea and what looked like medication. Mr. Russo thought you might have trouble sleeping, she said, setting down the tray. These are mild. They'll help you rest without knocking you out completely. Elena looked at the pills suspiciously. How does he know I'd have trouble sleeping? Because he's seen this before. Sophia's expression was kind but matter-of-fact. You're not the first person he's helped escape a bad situation, and you won't be the last. What do you mean? It's not my story to tell. Sophia moved toward the door, then paused. But I will say this, whatever you're thinking about Mr. Russo, whatever you're worried he might want from you, you're wrong. He's a complicated man, but he's not Ryan Caldwell. When he says he wants to help, he means it. After Sophia left, Elena sat with the tea and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, her mother was probably still talking to police, answering questions, trying to understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Somewhere out there, Ryan was furious, humiliated, planning his next move. And she was here, in a stranger's apartment, her entire life in pieces around her. But for the first time in 6 months, she could breathe. Elena took one of the pills Sophia had left, swallowed it with tea, and made her way to the guest room. The bed was enormous, the sheets felt like clouds, and she was asleep before she could worry about tomorrow. She dreamed about her father, or the idea of her father, since she barely remembered him. In the dream, he was telling her she was brave, that she was strong, that she'd done the right thing. When she woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, she could almost believe it. Elena woke to voices in the hallway outside her room. Male voices, low and urgent, speaking that same rapid Italian she'd heard Adrian use on the phone. She lay still for a moment, disoriented, before yesterday came crashing back. The wedding, the bet, running away in her dress. Adrian. Her phone showed 8 missed calls, all from Ryan's number. She turned it face down on the nightstand and got up. The guest bathroom had a new toothbrush waiting, still in its package, along with high-end skincare products she'd only ever seen in magazine advertisements. Elena brushed her teeth and studied her reflection. Without makeup, hair loose around her shoulders, wearing borrowed clothes, she looked younger, more like herself, or maybe like someone she used to be and had forgotten. The voices had stopped by the time she emerged. She found Adrian in the kitchen, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He was making coffee with the kind of expensive machine that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent used to be. "Morning," he said without turning around. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I expected." Elena slid onto one of the bar stools at the marble counter. "Who was here?" "My lawyer. We needed to discuss some things." He poured coffee into 2 cups, slid one toward her. "Cream, sugar? Black's fine." He nodded approvingly and took the stool across from her. This close, in morning light, she could see details she'd missed yesterday. A thin scar above his left eyebrow, faint shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept much. The way he held himself, always alert, like relaxation was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Your mother's been calling me," Adrian said. "She wants to see you." "How does she have your number?" "I gave it to her last night after you fell asleep. Wanted her to know how to reach you in case of emergency." He sipped his coffee. "She's worried, understandably." "I should go see her." "Probably, but we need to talk first." Adrian set down his cup. "Ryan's making moves." Elena's stomach tightened. "What kind of moves?" "He held a press conference this morning. Concerned fiancé, worried about his missing bride, asking anyone with information to come forward. Very convincing performance." Adrian's tone was dry. "He's positioned himself as the victim here." "Of course he has." "There's more. He's claiming you were acting strangely in the days leading up to the wedding, hinting at mental health issues, possible instability, setting up a narrative where you're the unstable one who left him at the altar for no reason." The coffee turned sour in Elena's stomach. "That's smart, from his perspective. If people think you're unbalanced, they're less likely to believe anything you say about him." Adrian pulled out his phone, showed her a news article. The headline read, "Socialite Ryan Caldwell speaks out about runaway bride." Elena scanned the article, each word making her angrier. Ryan painted a picture of a troubled woman he'd tried to help, who'd come from a difficult background, who he'd fallen in love with despite their different worlds. He expressed concern for her well-being. He hoped she'd get the help she needed. He was devastated, but understood she was going through something he couldn't fix. "He's making himself look like a saint," Elena said flatly. "He's protecting his reputation. The Caldwell family can't afford a scandal right now. They're in the middle of several major business deals. If word got out that their golden boy made a bet to seduce a poor girl for sport, it would destroy their carefully crafted image." Adrian took his phone back. "So they're rewriting the story." What am I supposed to do? Call my own press conference? Tell everyone he's lying? You could, but it would be your word against his, and he has resources you don't. Money, lawyers, a PR team that's very good at what they do. Adrian leaned back. We need proof. Proof of what? I overheard a conversation. I didn't record it. No, but the friend he was talking to, that's a weak link. People like Ryan have friends who'll stay loyal as long as it benefits them. But loyalty has a price. Adrian's expression was calculating. My people are already looking into Ryan's inner circle, finding out who was there that day, who might have been part of the bet, who might be convinced to tell the truth if properly motivated. Your people, Elena repeated. You keep saying that. Who exactly works for you? Security consultants, investigators, people who are good at finding information others want to keep hidden. He said it casually, like it was perfectly normal to have a team of investigators at your disposal. The Russo family has enemies, Elena. We protect ourselves by knowing things others don't. There was that careful phrasing again, the sense of something larger lurking beneath the surface. Elena thought about what Sophia had said last night, that she wasn't the first person Adrian had helped escape a bad situation. What kind of man had a standing team of investigators and a track record of rescuing people? What exactly does your family do? She asked. Adrian met her eyes steadily. We have diversified business interests across multiple sectors, some legitimate, some in gray areas, some that would make you uncomfortable if you knew the details. That's not an answer. It's the answer I can give you right now. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm not Ryan, Elena. I'm not going to lie to you or manipulate you. But there are things about my world that you're better off not knowing, for your own protection. That's patronizing. Maybe. Or maybe it's practical. He stood, refilled his coffee. You can walk away from this right now if you want. I'll set up the trust fund your father should have had, make sure you and your mother are taken care of financially, and we'll go our separate ways. You'll never have to wonder what kind of man is helping you because I won't be in your life anymore. The offer should have been tempting. Clean break, financial security, no complications. But something in Elena resisted. Or, she asked, or you trust that I have your best interests at heart, even if you don't understand all my methods. Let me help you deal with Ryan. Let me teach you how to fight back against people like him. Adrian turned to face her fully. Your father was brave, Elena. He stood up to armed men to protect people he barely knew. You have that same courage. I saw it yesterday when you walked away from that wedding. But courage without strategy is just martyrdom. Let me give you the tools to make your courage count. Elena studied him, trying to read between the lines. He was offering her something more than money or protection. He was offering to make her dangerous in her own right, someone who couldn't be pushed around or manipulated or made to feel small. Why? She asked. And don't tell me it's just because of my father. This is more than paying a debt. Adrian smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. You're right. It is more. He came back to the counter, leaned against it. I don't like bullies, Elena. I especially don't like men who use their wealth and privilege to hurt people who can't fight back. Ryan Caldwell is everything I despise about my world. The entitlement, the casual cruelty, the belief that other people are just toys to play with. So this is personal for you. Very. His voice went cold. The Caldwells have hurt people I care about. They've done things they've never been held accountable for because they're very good at burying their mistakes. Helping you isn't just about paying a debt to your father. It's about finally making them pay for something. There it was. The real answer. Adrian wasn't just being altruistic. He had his own agenda, but at least he was honest about it. What do you get out of this? Elena asked. Satisfaction, and possibly some leverage against the Caldwell family I can use in future business dealings. He didn't try to dress it up. I'm not a good person, Elena. I'm just a person who happens to want the same thing you want right now, to see Ryan Caldwell face consequences for once in his privileged life. Elena thought about it. She could be offended that he had ulterior motives, or she could be pragmatic and recognize that his motives aligned with hers, which made him useful. Okay, she said. Teach me how to fight back. Adrian's smile widened. First lesson. Information is power. We need to know everything about Ryan's bet. Who was involved, what the exact terms were, if anyone documented it. My investigators are already on it, but you might remember details that could help. Any conversations you overheard, names Ryan mentioned, places his friends gathered. Elena tried to think back through the past 6 months. Ryan's friends had always been background noise to her. Rich, interchangeable men in expensive suits who treated her with polite condescension. But there was one who'd been around more than others. Chad, she said suddenly. Ryan mentioned someone named Chad when I overheard him. Said Chad didn't think he could do it. Adrian pulled out his phone, typed something. Chad Morrison? I don't know his last name. Tall guy, dark hair, always wears too much cologne. That's Morrison. He and Ryan were roommates at boarding school. Adrian's thumbs moved quickly across his screen. He works for his father's hedge fund, reputation for being even more of an entitled ass than Ryan, which is saying something. How do you know all this? I make it my business to know who's who in this city, especially people who run in the same circles as my family. He looked up from his phone. Chad Morrison also has a gambling problem and some debt he's been trying to hide from his father. That's useful. You're going to blackmail him? I'm going to offer him a choice. Tell the truth about Ryan's bet, or have his father find out about the $200,000 he owes to some very unpleasant people. Adrian said it matter-of-factly. He'll choose self-preservation. They always do. Elena should probably be bothered by the casual discussion of blackmail. But watching Adrian work, seeing the gears turn behind his eyes, she felt something unexpected. Relief. For 6 months she'd felt powerless in Ryan's world, always trying to catch up, to fit in, to be worthy. But Adrian was showing her the machinery behind it all, the leverage points and pressure zones that actually mattered. What else? She asked. We need to get ahead of Ryan's narrative. Right now he's controlling the story, but we can change that. Adrian pulled up another article on his phone. There's a reporter, Caroline Webb, who writes for the City magazine. She's been trying to dig into the Caldwell family's business practices for years, but can never get enough evidence. If we give her an exclusive about Ryan's bet, about how he systematically manipulated you, she'd run with it. More than that, she'd investigate it properly, get corroborating sources, make it a story that can't be dismissed as a bitter ex-girlfriend making accusations. Adrian looked at her seriously. But it means putting yourself out there, Elena. Going public with everything. Are you ready for that? Elena thought about Ryan on television, playing the concerned fiancé while destroying her credibility. Thought about her mother fielding questions from neighbors and former coworkers. Thought about every person who'd looked at her yesterday like she was crazy for walking away from Ryan Caldwell. Yes, she said. I'm ready. Good. I'll set up a meeting with Caroline. Adrian made a note on his phone. In the meantime, you should see your mother. She needs to know you're okay. Can you come with me? The question came out before Elena could stop it. Adrian looked surprised. You don't need me there, he said. I know, but Elena struggled to articulate it. She's going to want explanations I'm not sure how to give. And she should know about my father, about what really happened to him. It should come from you. Adrian considered this, then nodded. All right, but we should probably call first, let her know I'm coming. Some mothers get protective when strange men start showing up with their daughters. Elena called her mother using Adrian's phone again. Margaret answered immediately, her voice tight with worry. It's me, Mom. Thank goodness. I've been going crazy. Where are you? Are you still with that man? His name is Adrian Russo, and yes, I'm still with him. He's... How did she even explain this? He knew Dad. I'll explain everything when I see you. Can we come over? We? Adrian's coming with me. There are things you need to know about Dad, about why Adrian's helping us. Elena looked at Adrian, who nodded encouragingly. It's going to sound strange, but just trust me, okay? Margaret agreed reluctantly, and they made plans to meet at her apartment in an hour. Elena borrowed more clothes from the mysterious collection Sophia maintained. Apparently, Adrian kept a full wardrobe in various sizes for guests, which raised questions Elena decided not to ask. She ended up in dark jeans and a soft gray sweater that probably cost more than her entire pre-Ryan wardrobe combined. Adrian's driver took them across town to the apartment complex where Elena had grown up. It looked shabbier than she remembered. Peeling paint, cracked sidewalk, the perpetual smell of garbage from the dumpsters that never got emptied often enough. Adrian didn't react to the neighborhood, didn't make the kind of subtle face Ryan used to make when he visited, like he was slumming. Margaret opened the door before they could knock. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy bun, still wearing the clothes she'd probably slept in. Her eyes went immediately to Elena, scanning her for injuries or signs of distress. "I'm okay, Mom," Elena said, stepping into a hug. "I promise, I'm okay." Margaret held her tight, then pulled back to look at Adrian. Her expression was wary, protective. "You're the man she's staying with?" "Adrian Russo, ma'am." He offered his hand. "I know this situation is unusual, but I assure you Elena's been safe and will continue to be safe under my protection." Protection from what? Margaret didn't take his hand. "My daughter left her wedding yesterday, disappeared for hours, and now she's telling me she's staying with a man I've never met. You can understand why I'm not feeling very reassured." "Mom, let us come in, please. We need to talk." Margaret stepped aside, still watching Adrian suspiciously. The apartment was small, neat despite the worn furniture and dated appliances. Margaret had always kept things clean, no matter how bad things got financially. It was one of the ways she maintained dignity. They sat in the tiny living room, Elena and her mother on the couch, Adrian in the armchair that used to be Elena's father's favorite spot. Margaret's eyes lingered on him there, something flickering across her face. "You said you knew Daniel," she said quietly. "I did. Not well, but I knew him. He worked security at one of my family's properties 15 years ago." Adrian leaned forward, his voice gentle. "Mrs. Brooks, what you were told about your husband's death, it wasn't the whole truth." Margaret's hand found Elena's, gripping tight. "What do you mean?" Adrian told her the same story he'd told Elena. The robbery, the violence, Daniel Brooks putting himself between armed men and Adrian's younger sister. How he'd saved her life at the cost of his own. How the Russo family had tried to protect Daniel's family by creating a cover story and moving them away, by setting up a trust fund that was supposed to ensure they'd never struggle. "But the lawyer we hired to manage the trust embezzled the money," Adrian finished. "By the time we discovered the theft, you'd moved multiple times and we lost track of you. I've been looking for you and Elena for 5 years. When I saw the wedding announcement," he paused. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry you struggled when you should have been taken care of." Margaret's face had gone pale. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't make a sound, just sat there absorbing this rewriting of her history. "He died saving someone," she whispered finally. "All these years I thought, the police said it was just random, wrong place, wrong time, but he died a hero." "He died protecting people who couldn't protect themselves," Adrian confirmed. "It's what he did, who he was." Margaret looked at Elena, then back at Adrian. "And that's why you're helping my daughter? Because you feel your family owes us?" "That's part of it," Adrian admitted. "But it's also because Elena needed help yesterday, and I was in a position to provide it. Your husband gave his life for my sister. The least I can do is make sure his daughter doesn't marry a man who is using her." "This bet Ryan made," Margaret's voice hardened. "Tell me again what you heard." Elena went through it one more time, every awful detail of that overheard conversation. Her mother listened with an expression that cycled through hurt, anger, and finally cold fury. "That son of a—" Margaret cut herself off. "And he was here, in this apartment, looking me in the eye, calling me Mom, making me believe he cared about us, about my daughter." "He's very good at what he does," Adrian said. "Men like Ryan Caldwell are raised to be charming, to make people feel special while manipulating them. It's not your fault you believed him. He's been practicing his whole life." "What happens now?" Margaret asked. "He's on the news playing the victim, making Elena look unstable. How do we fight that?" "We expose him," Adrian said simply. "We find proof of the bet. We go to the press. We make sure everyone knows what kind of man Ryan Caldwell really is. And Elena stays safe while we do this?" "She stays with me. I have security, resources, and enough money to make sure the Caldwells think twice before trying anything stupid." Adrian's tone was absolute. "No one touches her. I give you my word." Margaret studied him for a long moment. Elena could see her mother weighing risks, assessing this strange man who'd appeared in their lives with offers of help and stories about the past. "Your word means something?" Margaret asked finally. "It's the only thing I have that truly belongs to me," Adrian replied. "Everything else, the money, the properties, the family name, that all came from somewhere else. But my word is mine. And when I give it, I keep it." Something in his voice must have convinced her. Margaret nodded slowly. Okay, Elena can stay with you, but I want regular check-ins every day. And if I feel like something's wrong, I'm calling the police myself. Understood. They talked for another hour. Adrian explained more about the trust fund he was setting up, the amount Elena and Margaret would receive. The numbers were staggering, enough that Margaret actually laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. That's not real money, she said. People like us don't have that kind of money. You do now, Adrian said. It's what the original trust would be worth today if it had been properly invested. It's yours, both of yours. I don't know what to do with this, Margaret admitted. You don't have to do anything right now. The lawyers will set everything up properly. In the meantime, Adrian pulled out a checkbook, wrote something, tore it off. This should cover immediate expenses. Pay any bills, buy whatever you need. Margaret stared at the check. This is $20,000. Is that enough? I can make it more. No, it's... She looked up at him, tears starting again. You don't even know us. Why are you doing this? Because I couldn't help you 15 years ago when you needed it most. Let me help now. Adrian stood. I should go. Give you two some time together. Elena, take as long as you need. Text me when you're ready and I'll send the car back. He left before either of them could thank him again. After the door closed, Margaret turned to Elena. Is he real? She asked. Did that actually just happen? I think so, Elena said, but I keep waiting for the catch. Me too. Margaret looked down at the check in her hands. But your father always said there were still good people in the world. People who did the right thing just because it was right. Maybe Adrian Russo is one of them. Or maybe he was something more complicated, Elena thought. But either way, he was helping them, and right now that was enough. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking. Margaret showed Elena the newspaper articles about the wedding, the speculation and gossip that had exploded overnight. Someone had leaked photos from inside the hotel, the abandoned bridal suite, the ceremony space with confused guests, Ryan looking distraught. The media had crafted a narrative, and Elena was the villain in it. The unstable girl who couldn't handle marrying into wealth. The gold digger who got cold feet when she realized it came with expectations. Let them talk, Elena said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. When the truth comes out, they'll all feel stupid for believing his lies. That's my girl, Margaret said, something like pride in her voice. When did you get so brave? Yesterday. In a hallway at the Grandstone, when I decided I'd rather have nothing than have Ryan Caldwell. Her mother hugged her again, and Elena let herself be held like she was still a child who could be protected from the world's cruelties. She wasn't that child anymore. She was something new, something still forming, shaped by betrayal and rescue in equal measure. When Adrian's car came back for her that evening, Margaret walked her down to the street. She studied the sleek black vehicle, the professional driver, the sheer expense of it all. Be careful, she said to Elena. With Ryan, with Adrian, with all of it. Trust your instincts like you did yesterday. I will. And Elena, Margaret touched her daughter's face. I'm sorry I pushed you toward Ryan so hard. I was so desperate for us to be secure, I didn't see what it was costing you. You didn't know. Neither of us did. Still, Margaret's expression was sad. You shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself to keep me safe. That's not how it's supposed to work. Elena kissed her mother's cheek and got in the car. Through the window, she watched Margaret standing on the sidewalk, holding that check that could change her life, looking smaller and more vulnerable than Elena had ever seen her. Back at Adrian's apartment, she found him on the phone again, pacing in his office. He gestured for her to wait, finished his conversation in clipped Italian, then hung up. Your mother doing okay? He asked. Processing, it's a lot. Elena sat on the couch. Did you mean what you said to her about your word being the only thing that truly belongs to you? Yes. Then I need you to give me your word about something. Adrian's expression became guarded. What? That when this is over, when Ryan's been dealt with and my life settles into whatever it's going to be, you'll tell me the whole truth about who you are and what your family really does. Elena held his gaze. I don't need to know now, but eventually I do, because I don't like operating in the dark. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he crossed the room and sat across from her, his posture serious. All right, you have my word. When this is finished, I'll tell you everything. He extended his hand. Deal? Elena shook it. His grip was firm, warm, exactly as solid as it had been yesterday when he'd pulled her up off that hallway floor. Deal, she agreed. What she didn't know then, couldn't have guessed, was that learning the truth about Adrian Russo would change her life even more dramatically than walking away from Ryan Caldwell. But that revelation was still weeks away, buried beneath layers of strategy and revenge, and the slow-burning discovery that the man who'd saved her might need saving himself. For now, all she knew was that she'd made a choice, not to trust blindly like she had with Ryan, but to trust conditionally, intelligently, with her eyes open. It was progress. The message came 3 days later, while Elena was eating breakfast and pretending to read the news on her tablet. She'd been staying in Adrian's guest room, existing in a strange limbo where her old life was gone, but her new one hadn't started yet. The text was from a number she didn't recognize. "We need to talk. This has gone far enough. Meet me at Olio's, 7 p.m. tonight. Come alone. Ryan." Elena's hand tightened on her coffee cup. She showed the message to Adrian, who was across the counter reviewing documents. "Olio's is public," he said, reading it. "Upscale Italian place downtown. He's choosing neutral ground. He wants me to come alone, which you obviously won't do." Adrian set down his papers. "But you should go. Hear what he has to say. I'll have people there watching. He won't know, but you'll be protected." What if he tries something? In the middle of a crowded restaurant? Unlikely. Ryan's not stupid. He knows anything that happens to you now would point directly back to him. Adrian studied her face. "But if you're not ready..." "I'm ready." Elena was surprised to find it was true. "I want to hear what he could possibly say to justify this." That evening, she dressed carefully in clothes Sophia had acquired for her. A simple black dress that looked expensive without trying too hard. Low heels, minimal jewelry. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone different from the girl who'd served Ryan coffee at a diner. Different even from the bride who'd run away 3 days ago. This woman looked like she could handle herself. Adrian's driver took her to Olio's. Before she got out, Adrian, who'd insisted on riding along despite staying in the car, caught her hand. "You have nothing to prove to him," he said. "Remember that. This meeting is on your terms, not his." "What if he apologizes?" "Then he's lying." Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. "Men like Ryan don't apologize. They recalibrate. Whatever he says tonight, he's working an angle. Don't forget that." Elena nodded and stepped out into the cool evening air. Olio's had a warm glow spilling from its windows, the sound of soft jazz and conversation drifting out. She gave her name to the host. Ryan had apparently made a reservation, and was led to a private corner table where he was already waiting. He stood when he saw her, and for a second Elena's breath caught. He looked good. Of course he looked good. Perfectly tailored suit, hair artfully styled, that same smile that had made her feel special once. But now she could see the calculation behind it, the performance of charm. "Elena." He moved to kiss her cheek, but she stepped back. His smile flickered but held. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." She sat, keeping the table between them. "What do you want, Ryan?" "To talk. To explain." He sat across from her, spreading his hands like he had nothing to hide. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But this whole thing has gotten out of control." "You mean people finding out you made a bet to seduce me?" His jaw tightened. "You heard something out of context. I was drunk, talking trash with Chad. It didn't mean anything." "Really? So you didn't pursue me to prove you could make a nobody fall in love with you? You didn't laugh about getting me to the altar?" "Elena." He reached across the table, but she pulled her hands back. "Yes. Okay. There was a stupid bet at the beginning, but that was before I got to know you, before I actually fell for you. Don't." Her voice came out harder than she expected. "Don't lie to me anymore. I've had 3 days to think about every moment we spent together, and I can see it now. How you never really let me in. How you kept me separate from your real life. How everything was on your terms, your schedule, your world. Because I was trying to protect you from people who would judge you for not being born into money." Ryan's tone was earnest, pleading. "My family, my friends. They're snobs, Elena. I didn't want you to deal with their condescension. Or maybe you didn't want them to see how you really felt about me, like I was a project, something to show off when it suited you and hide when it didn't." The waiter appeared asking about drinks. Ryan ordered wine without consulting her, the same presumptuous way he always had. Elena asked for water. When they were alone again, Ryan leaned forward. I made mistakes. I'll own that. But walking out on our wedding, disappearing without a word, you humiliated me in front of everyone I know. You humiliated yourself when you made that bet. It was a joke that went too far. But I love you, Elena. I want to fix this. His hand crept across the table again. Come back. We'll elope, skip all the drama and the public spectacle. Start fresh somewhere no one knows us. Elena stared at him. You actually think I'd marry you after what I heard? People say stupid things. It doesn't change what we have. We don't have anything. We never did. She kept her voice level, refusing to let him see how much this hurt. You created a fantasy and I was desperate enough to believe in it. But I'm not that desperate anymore. Ryan's expression hardened slightly. You're with him now, aren't you? That man from the hotel. Adrian Russo. That's none of your business. I know who he is, Elena. I know what his family does. Ryan's voice dropped. The Russos aren't good people. They're connected to things you can't even imagine. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's promised, it's not real. He's using you just like you think I was. At least he's honest about his motives. Is he? Has he told you about the violence, the illegal businesses, the people who've disappeared after crossing his family? Ryan was leaning in now, urgent. I'm not perfect, but at least I'm not a criminal. At least with me, you'd be safe. Elena laughed, surprised by how bitter it sounded. Safe? You manipulated me for 6 months. You played with my mother's health and my financial desperation. You made us both believe you cared when, really, you were just collecting on a bet. That's not safety, Ryan. That's cruelty. I'm trying to protect you. No, you're trying to protect your reputation. Elena stood, done with this conversation. Whatever story you want to tell about me, go ahead. Tell people I'm crazy, unstable, whatever makes you look better. But we're finished. We were finished the second I heard you laughing about getting me to the altar. You'll regret this. Ryan's mask was slipping now, anger bleeding through. When Russo gets bored of his charity project and tosses you aside, when you realize you gave up security for pride, you'll regret it. Maybe. But at least it'll be my choice. Elena grabbed her purse. Goodbye, Ryan. She walked out before he could respond, her heart pounding but her steps steady. She didn't look back. The host held the door for her and she stepped onto the street where Adrian's car was waiting at the curb. She slid into the back seat, and Adrian took one look at her face. That bad? He tried to convince me he actually loves me, that the bet didn't mean anything. Elena buckled her seatbelt. When that didn't work, he tried to scare me about you. Warned me about your family's connections, said you're dangerous. I am dangerous, Adrian said matter-of-factly. He's not wrong about that. But you're not dangerous to me. No, not to you. He signaled the driver to go. He say anything useful? Just that he wants to elope and start over, which is insane. It's desperate, which means our plan is working. Adrian looked pleased. The reporter, Caroline Webb, is running her story tomorrow. Chad Morrison gave her a statement about the bet after some convincing. By this time tomorrow, Ryan's carefully constructed victim narrative falls apart. Elena should probably feel triumphant, but mostly she just felt tired. Will it matter? People believe what they want to believe. Some will, but enough won't. The Caldwell family's reputation will take a hit, their business deals will face scrutiny, and Ryan will learn that actions have consequences. Adrian's voice was satisfied. It won't undo what he did to you, but it's something. They drove in silence for a while. Elena watched the city pass by, thinking about Ryan sitting alone in that restaurant, probably already planning his next move. He wouldn't just accept defeat. Men like him never did. He's going to come after me harder now, she said. Let him try. Adrian's tone was ice. He touches you, threatens you, even looks at you wrong. I'll end him. The vehemence in his voice made Elena look at him. In the dim light from passing street lamps, his face was hard, dangerous. This was the man Ryan had warned her about, the one connected to violence and illegal businesses and people disappearing. And somehow, Elena wasn't afraid. Why do you care so much? She asked. About me specifically. You said you don't like bullies and you have history with the Caldwells, but this feels personal in a different way. Adrian was quiet for so long, Elena thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "My sister, the one your father saved. Her name was Isabella." The past tense registered immediately. Was? She died 5 years ago. Car accident, officially. His voice was carefully controlled. But I've never believed it was an accident. She was investigating some business dealings between my family and the Caldwells. She found something, evidence of fraud or bribery, or worse. I never got to see what she'd discovered because the day before she was supposed to show me, her car went off a bridge. Elena's chest tightened. You think the Caldwells killed her? I think someone did. And the Caldwells had motive and means. He looked out the window. I've spent 5 years trying to prove it, trying to find evidence that would hold up. But they're careful. Rich people always are. They have layers between themselves and their dirty work. So helping me hurt Ryan is the closest I've come to making them pay for something. Adrian turned back to her. I told you I'm not a good person, Elena. I'm using you just like Ryan did, just with your consent and for a different purpose. If that bothers you, I understand. Elena thought about it. Should it bother her that Adrian had his own agenda? That he was fighting a proxy war against the Caldwells using her humiliation as ammunition? It doesn't, she said finally. Because you're not pretending otherwise. You told me the truth from the beginning. A version of it. More truth than Ryan ever gave me. Elena met his eyes. Besides, if my pain can mean something, if it can help you get justice for your sister, then at least it wasn't all for nothing. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Isabella would have liked you. She was fierce too in her own way. Couldn't stand injustice. Tell me about her. So he did. As the car carried them through the city, Adrian talked about his younger sister, how she'd been idealistic despite growing up in their complicated family, how she'd wanted to study law and fight corruption from the inside, how she'd been brilliant and stubborn and brave. She was the good one, Adrian said quietly, the one who was going to make the Russo name mean something better, and they took her from me. Elena reached across the seat and took his hand. He looked surprised but didn't pull away. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be sorry. Help me make them pay. I will. The next morning, Caroline Webb's article went live. Elena read it on her tablet while eating breakfast, Adrian reading over her shoulder. The headline was damning. The Bet. How Ryan Caldwell treated love like a game. Caroline had done her homework. She'd interviewed Chad Morrison, who admitted to the bet under pressure, though Elena suspected Adrian's blackmail had helped. She'd talked to other friends of Ryan's who corroborated the story about his pattern of treating relationships like conquests. She'd dug into the Caldwell family's business practices and found other instances of questionable ethics, and she'd interviewed Elena. That conversation had happened 2 days ago in Adrian's office with his lawyers present. Elena had told Caroline everything, the courtship, the engagement, the overheard conversation, the humiliation. Caroline had been professional but sympathetic, asking the right questions to get the full story without making Elena feel like she was being interrogated. Now, reading her own words in print, Elena felt exposed and vindicated in equal measure. The hardest part was realizing I'd been erasing myself to fit into his world, the article quoted Elena saying. He made me feel like I should be grateful he chose me. But love isn't supposed to make you feel grateful. It's supposed to make you feel seen. The article was trending by mid-morning. Elena's phone, which she'd finally turned back on, exploded with messages. Some supportive, some vicious, many from reporters wanting her story. Adrian's PR team filtered them, responding professionally while protecting Elena's privacy. Ryan's response came at noon, a statement released through his lawyer denying everything, claiming Chad Morrison was lying for personal gain, insisting Elena was unstable and being manipulated by Adrian Russo's vendetta against the Caldwell family. But the damage was done. Public opinion was shifting. The narrative of the unstable runaway bride was competing with a new narrative, the brave woman who'd escaped a sociopath. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Then things got worse. Elena was in the apartment alone. Adrian had gone to a meeting he couldn't postpone when the building's security called up. Miss Brooks? There's a Mrs. Caldwell here to see you, Ryan's mother. Should I send her up? Elena's stomach dropped. No, tell her I'm not available. She's quite insistent, miss. Says it's urgent. Elena thought fast. The smart thing would be to refuse, but part of her was curious what Ryan's mother could possibly want. Send her up, Elena said against her better judgment. Victoria Caldwell arrived looking exactly like old money personified. Perfectly tailored suit, tasteful jewelry, hair that had probably cost more than Elena's rent used to be. She swept into the apartment like she owned it, her sharp eyes taking in everything. Miss Brooks, thank you for seeing me. I'm not sure I should have. Elena stayed near the door, ready to ask her to leave. What do you want? To make you an offer. Victoria sat without being invited, crossing her legs elegantly. My son is miserable. You've destroyed his reputation with your lies, turned public opinion against him, all because you heard a private conversation out of context. I didn't lie about anything. I don't care about the truth, Victoria interrupted. I care about my family's standing in this community. And right now, you're a problem. Elena felt her anger rising. Then you should have raised a son who doesn't treat people like toys. Ryan made a mistake, a foolish juvenile mistake, but you've blown it entirely out of proportion. Victoria opened her purse, pulled out a checkbook. So, here's my offer. I'll write you a check for $500,000. You recant your story, claim you misunderstood what you heard, and quietly disappear from our lives. Elena stared at her. You're trying to buy my silence. I'm trying to resolve an unfortunate situation pragmatically. Victoria clicked her pen. $500,000, Miss Brooks. That's more than you'd make in 10 years at your previous employment. Take it, start over somewhere else, and everyone moves on. Everyone except me, you mean? I'm supposed to pretend your son didn't use me for sport? My son made a bet with his friends. Tasteless, yes, but harmless. You're the one who turned it into a crusade. Victoria's voice hardened. And Adrian Russo is the one encouraging you, using you to hurt my family because of some paranoid theory about his sister. Isabella's death wasn't an accident. Isabella Russo drove her car off a bridge because she was mentally unstable. The police investigation found no evidence of foul play. Victoria stood, leaving the check on the coffee table. But that's not your concern. Your concern should be your future. Take the money, Miss Brooks, because if you continue down this path with Russo, you'll regret it. Is that a threat? It's advice from someone who's been in this world a lot longer than you. Victoria moved toward the door. You're out of your depth here. My family has resources you can't imagine, and we protect our own. Whatever Russo's promised you, it's not worth making an enemy of the Caldwells. Elena followed her to the door, opened it. Tell Ryan I said no. Tell him I'm not for sale. Victoria paused in the doorway. You really think you're different from all the other girls who've tried to climb into our world? You're not. You're just more stubborn. She looked Elena up and down dismissively. That stubbornness will destroy you. Better to be destroyed than to be whatever Ryan was trying to turn me into. After Victoria left, Elena stood alone in the apartment, shaking with adrenaline. She picked up the check from the coffee table. $500,000 made out to her name, signed in elegant script. She tore it in half. When Adrian came home an hour later, she told him about the visit. His expression went dark. She came here? To my home? I let her up. I'm sorry, I should have. You have nothing to apologize for. Adrian pulled out his phone. But this is escalation. The Caldwells are getting desperate. She tried to buy me off. Of course she did. It's what they always do. Throw money at problems until they go away. He made a call, spoke rapid Italian to someone. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I'm doubling your security. From now on, you don't go anywhere without protection. That's excessive. Victoria Caldwell coming here isn't a peace offering, Elena. It's reconnaissance. She wanted to see where you're staying, assess your defenses, figure out how to hurt you. Adrian's voice was hard. These people don't play fair. They've already destroyed their son's reputation trying to protect him. Now they'll try to destroy you. Let them try. Elena surprised herself with how much she meant it. I'm done being afraid of people like them. Adrian studied her for a moment, then smiled. Good, because we're about to hit them even harder. He showed her what his investigators had found. Financial records showing the Caldwell family's foundation, the same one Ryan had been about to launch publicly, was using creative accounting to funnel money into private accounts. Not enough to be obviously criminal, but enough to raise serious questions about their charitable intentions. Caroline's going to run this as a follow-up, Adrian explained. The angle is Ryan's pattern of deception extends beyond his personal life into his family's business. It'll trigger investigations, audits, scrutiny they can't brush aside. This will destroy them. No, it'll damage them. There's a difference. Adrian's voice was cold. Families like the Caldwells don't get destroyed by one scandal, but they can be wounded. They can be made to understand that some people fight back. Elena looked at the document spread across Adrian's desk. This was more than just getting revenge for a broken heart. This was war, fought with information and public opinion and the machinery of power Adrian understood so well. Your sister, Elena said quietly. You really think they killed her? I know they did. I just can't prove it yet. Adrian's expression was haunted. But I will. Eventually they'll slip, and when they do, I'll be ready. Elena made a decision then. Not just to let Adrian use her story as a weapon, but to actively help him. To learn how this world really worked, how to fight back against people who thought their money made them untouchable. Teach me, she said. Teach you what? Everything. How to see through people like Ryan. How to protect myself. How to hurt them when they come after me. She met his eyes. You said courage without strategy is just martyrdom. Give me the strategy. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. All right, but it won't be easy. This world, my world, it's not kind to people who weren't born into it. I'm not looking for kindness. I'm looking for power. Something sparked in Adrian's eyes. Then we'll start tomorrow. But tonight, he gestured to the city spread out beyond his windows. Tonight, let's just breathe. You've been running on adrenaline for days. You need to rest. Elena wanted to argue, to push forward, but he was right. She was exhausted. The confrontation with Ryan, the article going public, Victoria's visit, it was all catching up with her. She went to bed early but couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's face across the table at Olio's, heard Victoria's dismissive voice, felt the weight of being underestimated and written off. Sometime after midnight, she gave up on sleep and wandered into the living room. Adrian was there, standing at the windows with a glass of whiskey, looking out at the city like he was searching for something in all those lights. Can't sleep either? Elena asked. I don't sleep much. He didn't turn around. Too many thoughts. Elena joined him at the window. What are you thinking about right now? About how we're more alike than I realized when we met. How so? We both lost people we loved. We both know what it's like to be used by people we trusted. And we're both willing to burn things down to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Adrian finally looked at her. That's a dangerous combination. Maybe, or maybe it's exactly what we need to be. They stood together in the dark, two people bound by grief and anger and the slow-burning need for justice. Elena didn't know then that this moment was a turning point, that she was crossing a line from victim to something else entirely, something harder. Something that would change who she was in ways she couldn't anticipate. But she knew enough to understand that her old life, the one where she worked double shifts and took night classes and believed in fairy tale endings, was gone forever. And she wasn't sure if she mourned it or was grateful. Outside, the city glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and sharp enough to cut. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new revelations, new choices. But tonight, Elena stood in Adrian Russo's living room and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt ready. 3 weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, reporters, and strategies mapped out on Adrian's office whiteboard like military campaigns. Elena learned how to spot manipulation in conversation, how to read body language, how to use silence as a weapon. She sat in on meetings where Adrian's team dissected the Caldwell family's vulnerabilities with surgical precision. She watched him work and understood why people were afraid of him. But she also saw the other side. The way he checked on her mother daily, making sure Margaret's new apartment was secure and comfortable. How he never pressured Elena to talk when she went quiet, processing everything that had happened. The careful distance he maintained between them, never crossing lines even though Elena had caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she couldn't quite name. Caroline Webb's second article hit like a bomb. Federal investigators announced they were opening an inquiry into the Caldwell Foundation's finances. 2 board members resigned. Ryan's father released a statement claiming they were victims of a smear campaign orchestrated by rival business interests, but the damage was done. Ryan himself had gone silent after the article dropped. No more press conferences, no more public statements. His social media went dark. It was the silence of someone realizing they'd lost control of the narrative. Elena should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. Revenge wasn't as satisfying as she'd imagined it would be. She was sitting in Adrian's kitchen one morning, staring at her untouched coffee, when he came in already dressed for the day. "You're brooding," he observed, pouring his own coffee. "I'm thinking." "About?" Elena turned the cup in her hands. "About whether any of this actually matters. Ryan's reputation is damaged, his family's under investigation, but he's still rich. He's still free. He'll probably recover from this eventually, find some other woman to manipulate, and I'll just be the crazy ex who tried to destroy him." "That's not true, isn't it?" Elena looked up at him. "What did we actually accomplish? We embarrassed him. That's it. He's not in jail. He's not suffering. He's just inconvenienced." Adrian set down his coffee and pulled out the chair across from her. "You want real consequences? Prison time? Financial ruin? Complete destruction?" "I want him to understand what he did, to actually feel something. Men like Ryan don't feel things the way you do. Empathy isn't part of their design." Adrian's voice was quiet but firm. "But you did accomplish something. You made him visible. You showed people what he really is. Every woman who might have been his next target now has a warning. Every business partner knows to watch their back. You didn't destroy him, but you marked him. That matters." "Does it? Because it doesn't feel like enough." "It never does." Adrian leaned back. "Justice rarely feels satisfying when you're the one who was hurt. But you did more than get revenge, Elena. You got free. You rebuilt your life on your terms. You made sure your mother was safe. That's victory, even if it doesn't feel like one yet." Elena wanted to argue, but before she could, Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression changed. "What?" Elena asked. "My investigator found something about Isabella's accident." He was already standing, moving toward his office. "I need to make some calls. We'll talk later." He disappeared before Elena could ask questions. She sat alone in the kitchen, listening to his muffled voice through the walls, the urgency in it, even when she couldn't make out words. 2 hours later, Adrian emerged looking like he'd aged a decade. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly as he poured himself whiskey despite the early hour. "Adrian, what happened?" He drank the whiskey in one swallow. "They found the mechanic who worked on Isabella's car the day before her accident. He's been hiding in Canada for 5 years, but my people finally tracked him down." Elena's chest tightened. "What did he say?" "That he was paid $50,000 to cut her brake line. Make it look like gradual failure, something that would happen on a mountain road where she always drove too fast." Adrian's voice was eerily calm. He was told if he ever talked, his family would be killed. So he ran, changed his name, disappeared. "Did he say who paid him?" "A lawyer named Marcus Hale, who worked for the Caldwells," Elena finished. "Richard Caldwell specifically. Ryan's father." Adrian poured another drink but didn't touch it. "Isabella found evidence that Richard was embezzling from joint ventures with my family. Millions of dollars over years, hidden through shell companies and creative accounting. She was going to expose him, destroy his reputation, probably send him to prison. So he killed her." The words hung in the air, terrible and final. Elena moved to Adrian's side, not touching him but close enough that he'd know she was there. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." He laughed, bitter and broken. 5 years I've been searching for proof, and now that I have it, I don't know what to do. If I go to the police, Richard's lawyers will bury the mechanic's testimony. If I go public, he'll claim it's part of our vendetta. His voice cracked. "If I do what I want to do, what I've fantasized about for 5 years, I become exactly what people like him claim I am." Elena understood what he wasn't saying. Adrian wanted revenge in its most primal form. He wanted to make Richard Caldwell suffer the way Isabella had suffered, the way he'd been suffering for 5 years. "There's another option," she said. What? You use the system, not the police, the financial regulators, the federal investigators who are already looking at the Caldwell Foundation. You give them the mechanic's testimony, connect it to Isabella's investigation, show them that Richard's been hiding criminal activity for years. Let them destroy him legally. That could take years, trials, appeals, but it would stick. Prison time, not just bad publicity, complete financial ruin when they seize his assets. And Richard Caldwell would spend the rest of his life knowing that Isabella won in the end. Elena turned to face him fully. You taught me that revenge isn't about immediate satisfaction. It's about making sure they can't hurt anyone else. This does that. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. When did you get so wise? About 3 weeks ago, when a stranger pulled me up off a hallway floor and told me I was stronger than I thought. Something shifted in his expression. For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian Russo looked uncertain, vulnerable. I need to tell you something, he said, and I need you to listen to the whole thing before you react. Elena's stomach dropped. Okay. When I first came to your wedding, it was to tell you about your father and the trust fund. That part was true. But when I saw you marrying Ryan, when I confirmed he'd made that bet, I had a choice. I could have warned you privately, helped you call it off quietly, kept you out of the spotlight. He took a breath. But I knew if I could get you angry enough, hurt enough, you'd fight back publicly. And a public fight with Ryan would hurt his family, would give me leverage I could use against them. You used me as bait. Yes, I manipulated you just like Ryan did, just with better intentions and your eventual consent. But in that moment, in that hallway, I saw an opportunity and I took it. Adrian's voice was raw. You deserve to know the truth about Ryan either way, but I made sure you learned it in the most painful way possible because it served my purposes. And I felt sick about it every day since. Elena processed this. She should be furious. She should feel betrayed all over again. But instead, she felt something unexpected, understanding. I know, she said quietly. Adrian blinked. You know? I'm not stupid, Adrian. I figured out pretty quickly that your help came with an agenda. You hate the Caldwells. You needed ammunition against them. My story was perfect for that. She moved to the window, looking out at the city. But here's the thing. You gave me a choice. You told me the truth as soon as I asked for it. You never promised me anything you didn't deliver. And yeah, you benefited from my pain, but you also gave me the tools to fight back. That's more than Ryan ever did. You're not angry? Oh, I'm angry. But not at you. Elena turned back to face him. I'm angry at myself for being so desperate for someone to love me that I ignored every warning sign with Ryan. I'm angry at a world where men like him get to use people as toys and face no real consequences. I'm angry that your sister died because she tried to do the right thing. She crossed back to him. But you've been honest in your dishonesty, if that makes sense. You told me you were using me. You let me decide if I was okay with that. Ryan never gave me that choice. Adrian's laugh was shaky. You're defending me for manipulating you. I'm saying I understand why you did it, and I probably would have done the same thing in your position. Elena picked up the whiskey he hadn't drunk and swallowed it herself, grimacing at the burn. Besides, you're not the only one who got something out of this arrangement. I got my life back. I got my mother safe. I got to watch Ryan Caldwell's perfect image crack. That's worth something. You deserve better than that. Maybe, but this is what I've got, and I'm choosing to make it enough. She set down the glass. Now stop feeling guilty and call your lawyers. Let's bury Richard Caldwell. Adrian studied her face, and Elena saw the moment he decided to believe her, to trust that she meant what she said. Okay, he said, but this is going to get uglier before it's over. Richard won't go down quietly. Good. I'm tired of quiet. The next 2 months were chaos. Adrian's lawyers coordinated with federal investigators, building a case against Richard Caldwell that spanned years of financial crimes. The mechanic from Canada gave a deposition, providing detailed testimony about the brake line and the $50,000. Other evidence emerged: emails, wire transfers, witnesses who'd been too scared to come forward before. Ryan was never charged with anything. He likely hadn't known about his father's involvement in Isabella's death. But the family's foundation collapsed under scrutiny. Board members fled. Charitable pledges were rescinded. The Caldwell name, once synonymous with prestige, became a punchline. Victoria Caldwell held one final press conference, standing by her husband and insisting he was innocent. But her face was hard, aging before the cameras, and Elena felt an unexpected twinge of pity. Victoria hadn't killed Isabella. She'd just raised a son who thought people were toys and married a man who thought murder was acceptable when money was at stake. Ryan himself moved to London, fleeing the scandal. Elena saw his departure mentioned in a gossip column. He'd been photographed with some European heiress, already moving on to his next target. She hoped the woman was smarter than Elena had been, hoped someone would warn her before it was too late. Through all of it, Elena and Adrian circled each other carefully. The professional distance he'd maintained started to feel less like respect and more like fear. Elena would catch him watching her, then looking away quickly when she met his eyes. They worked together perfectly, strategizing and planning, but the moment things veered toward personal, he'd retreat. Finally, Elena got tired of it. It was late evening, 3 months after the ruined wedding. Richard Caldwell's trial date had been set. Elena's trust fund was fully established, giving her and her mother financial security they'd never dreamed of. Margaret had started volunteering at a community center, using her newfound freedom to help other families in crisis. Everything was falling into place. Elena found Adrian in his office, staring at a photograph she'd never seen before. A young woman with dark hair and Adrian's eyes, laughing at something off camera. "Isabella?" Elena asked. He nodded, not looking away from the photo. This was taken a week before she died. She'd just gotten engaged, was planning a wedding for the spring. She was so happy. Elena sat beside him on the couch. "Tell me what you're thinking." "That I spent 5 years consumed by anger, and now that we're finally getting justice, I don't know what to do with myself." He set the photo down carefully. "Isabella was my moral compass, the good in our family. Without her, I've been—" He paused, searching for words. "Lost, dangerous, focused on revenge because it was simpler than grief. And now? Now I'm terrified that when Richard Caldwell goes to prison, when this is all over, I'll realize revenge was all I had. That I've built my entire life around anger, and without it, I'm just empty." Elena took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. He looked down at their joined hands like he couldn't quite believe she was touching him. "You're not empty," she said. "You're just ready for something new." "Like what?" "I don't know, but we could figure it out together." Elena's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "If you want to." Adrian finally looked at her, really looked at her, and Elena saw the war happening behind his eyes. Want versus fear. Hope versus the certainty that he didn't deserve it. "Elena, I know what you're going to say. That I've been through too much. That I'm confusing gratitude with feelings. That you're too damaged or dangerous or whatever excuse you've been telling yourself." She moved closer. "But I'm not confused. I know exactly what I feel." "What do you feel?" "That I trust you in ways I've never trusted anyone. That you make me braver and smarter and stronger. That when I imagine my future, you're in it." She paused. "And that I'm falling in love with you, if I haven't already." Adrian's breath caught. "You can't. Can't what? Can't love you?" "Why not?" "Because you manipulated me at the beginning? Because you used my pain to hurt your enemies? Because you're not some perfect white knight?" Elena laughed softly. "Adrian, I don't want perfect. Perfect is boring. Perfect is what Ryan pretended to be. I want real. I want someone who sees the world clearly, who fights for the people they love, who makes mistakes but owns them." "I'm not good for you." "That's not your decision to make. It's mine." She cupped his face, making him look at her. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to stop punishing yourself for being human. I manipulated you, and then you told me the truth. You gave me power. You helped me and my mother build a better life. You've spent months making sure I was safe, teaching me how to protect myself, never asking for anything in return." Elena's thumb traced his cheekbone. "You're not the villain in my story, Adrian. You're the person who showed me I could write my own ending." "Elena." His voice broke on her name. "Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me you don't want this and I'll let it go. But if you do feel it, if you want this even a fraction as much as I do, then stop running." For a long moment, Adrian just looked at her. Then he leaned forward and kissed her. It wasn't the practiced, performative kiss Ryan had given her. It was messy and uncertain and real, Adrian's hand shaking as it came up to cup her neck, Elena's fingers tangling in his hair. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm terrified I'll ruin this," he whispered. "Then we'll fix it. Together." "I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone without ulterior motives or strategy." "Neither do I. We'll learn." Elena pulled back enough to see his face. "But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll stop comparing yourself to Ryan. You're nothing like him, and I need you to believe that." Adrian closed his eyes. "I used you, with my eventual consent, and you've spent every day since making sure I had agency and power and choice. Ryan never gave me those things. You did." She took his face in both hands. "You saved me, Adrian. Not just from Ryan, but from becoming someone who accepted being used because she thought that was all she deserved. You showed me I'm worth more than that." When he opened his eyes, they were wet. "You're the bravest person I've ever met. I learned from the best." Elena kissed him again, slower this time, and felt him finally stop fighting himself. Stop running. Stop believing he didn't deserve something good. They stayed on that couch for hours, talking and kissing and planning a future that wasn't built on revenge or pain, but on something neither of them had expected to find. Hope. 6 months later, Richard Caldwell was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Elena sat in the courtroom with Adrian, watching justice finally happen. It wasn't perfect. 12 years felt too short for taking Isabella's life. But it was something. It was consequence. Ryan didn't attend his father's trial. Elena heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd gotten engaged to the European heiress, that he was reinventing himself in London as a businessman untainted by his family's scandal. She hoped his fiancé knew what she was getting into, hoped someone would warn her the way Adrian had warned Elena, but that wasn't Elena's responsibility anymore. She'd told her story, exposed Ryan's cruelty, and moved on. She'd learned that sometimes revenge was less about destruction and more about making sure you weren't destroyed in the process. Margaret threw a small party when the trust fund officially transferred to Elena's name. Just family and a few close friends in Margaret's new apartment, modest by Adrian's standards, but a palace compared to where they'd lived before. Elena's mother had put on weight, no longer carrying the stress that had been eating her alive. She laughed more. She slept through the night. "I'm proud of you," Margaret told Elena quietly while Adrian was in the kitchen helping with dishes. "Not for the money or the revenge or any of that. I'm proud that you walked away when it mattered, that you chose yourself. I learned it from you, Mom. You chose yourself when you left Dad's family after he died, when they wanted to pretend he never existed. I chose survival. You chose dignity. That's different." Margaret squeezed her hand. "And Adrian, he's good for you. I wasn't sure at first, but I see the way he looks at you, like you're the most important thing in his world. He is good for me. We're good for each other. That's how it should be. Not one person saving the other, but both people making each other better." Margaret smiled. "Your father would have liked him, I think. Would have appreciated that Adrian protected you the way Daniel tried to protect that girl all those years ago." Elena thought about the father she barely remembered, about how his choice to be brave had rippled through years to bring Adrian into her life. It was strange how tragedy could twist into something like grace if you waited long enough. A year after the ruined wedding, Elena and Adrian got married. Not at the Grand Stone Hotel with 200 guests and designer everything, but in a small garden behind Margaret's apartment building. 20 people who actually mattered. Elena in a simple dress she'd chosen herself, Adrian in a suit he didn't bother making perfect. Margaret cried through the whole ceremony. Adrian's security team tried to be subtle about watching the perimeter, but failed completely. Elena laughed when she saw them and felt something in her chest ease, the last piece of fear that Ryan might show up, might try to ruin this too. But Ryan was gone. The Caldwells were gone. Scattered by scandal and prosecution, this moment belonged only to Elena and Adrian, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of other people's cruelty and decided to build something better. When the officiant asked if Elena took Adrian as her husband, she thought about the girl who'd stood in a bridal suite a year ago, suffocating in a wedding that wasn't hers. That girl had been so desperate to be saved, she'd almost let herself be destroyed instead. But the woman standing in this garden wasn't that girl anymore. She was someone who'd learned to save herself, who'd learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts, but about trust and truth and choosing each other every day. "I do," Elena said, and meant it in ways she never could have with Ryan. When Adrian said the same words back, his voice breaking slightly, Elena saw the man he'd been trying to hide, not the dangerous investigator or the calculating strategist, but someone who'd been just as lost as she had. Someone who'd found his way back through helping her find hers. They kissed as husband and wife, and Elena felt the weight of the past year finally lift. The humiliation, the anger, the fear, all of it released like a breath she'd been holding too long. That night, at the small dinner reception, Elena's mother pulled her aside. "You're happy," Margaret said. It wasn't a question. "I am." "Really happy? Not just relieved or grateful or, really happy, Mom." Elena looked across the room at Adrian, who was being interrogated about his intentions by her elderly aunt. "I know it's complicated. I know we started in chaos, but this is real. What we have, it's real." "Then I'm happy too." Margaret hugged her daughter tight. "You deserve this. You deserve someone who sees you, really sees you, and loves what he finds." Later, when the guests had gone home, and it was just Elena and Adrian in his apartment, their apartment now, they stood at the windows looking out at the city like they had that first night. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked quietly. "Walking away from the wedding, everything that happened after?" Elena thought about it honestly. "Sometimes I regret how much it hurt. How much I let Ryan make me doubt myself, but walking away?" She shook her head. "That's the first thing I ever did that was completely mine. So no, I don't regret it. Even though it was messy and public and painful. Especially because of that. If it had been easy, I wouldn't have learned anything." She turned to face him. "Pain taught me what I'm capable of. Anger taught me I deserve better. And you," she took his hand, "you taught me that sometimes the people who help us most are the ones brave enough to tell us the truth, even when it hurts." Adrian pulled her close, and Elena felt the solid reality of him against her. Not a fantasy, not a performance, but a flawed human being who'd chosen her just as deliberately as she'd chosen him. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I don't say it enough, but I do. You're—" "I know," Elena smiled against his chest. "I love you too." They stood there as the city lights flickered and changed below them. Two people who'd been broken in different ways and somehow fit together anyway. It wasn't the fairy tale Elena had imagined when she'd agreed to marry Ryan. It was better. It was real. Because the thing about fairy tales, Elena had learned, was that they lied. They said love was about being rescued, about Prince Charmings and happy endings that arrived fully formed. But real love was messier than that. It was choosing to show up every day, choosing honesty over comfort, choosing to grow alongside someone instead of trying to mold them into what you wanted. Real love was Adrian telling her about his sister's murder and trusting Elena with his grief. It was Elena admitting she still had nightmares about Ryan sometimes, and Adrian holding her through them without judgment. It was both of them learning to be whole people separately so they could be better together. The trust fund changed their lives practically. Elena went back to school full-time, studying law because she wanted to help people like Caroline Webb had helped her. Margaret started a foundation for families dealing with sudden loss, using her experience to guide others through their darkest moments. Adrian slowly unwound from his vendetta against the Caldwells, finding new purpose in using his resources to help rather than hurt. But the real change was internal. Elena stopped waiting for someone to give her permission to exist. She spoke up in conversations, set boundaries without apologizing, built a life based on what she wanted rather than what others expected. She was still learning, still making mistakes, but they were her mistakes to make. 2 years after the ruined wedding, Elena graduated law school at the top of her class. Adrian was in the audience next to Margaret, both of them cheering embarrassingly loud when Elena's name was called. Looking out at them, Elena felt something she'd never quite felt before. Pride in herself, completely independent of anyone else's approval. She thought about the girl who'd served Ryan coffee in a diner, who'd been so grateful for his attention she'd missed all the warning signs. That girl would have been amazed by this moment, by the life Elena had built from the wreckage of that almost marriage. But Elena wasn't amazed. She'd earned this, every piece of it. That night, celebrating with friends and family, someone asked Elena if she ever wondered what her life would have been like if she'd married Ryan. No, Elena said honestly, because that life would have killed who I really am, slowly, quietly, but completely. Do you ever wish you could tell him that? The friend asked. That you're better off without him? Elena thought about it. She could track Ryan down, send him a message, show him everything he'd lost when he underestimated her. But that would mean he still mattered, that his opinion still held weight. No, she said again. The best revenge is just living well, being happy, becoming someone who wouldn't give him a second glance if we met today. She looked at Adrian across the room, caught his eye, and smiled. I don't need Ryan to know he lost. I just need to remember that I won. And she had won. Not because she'd destroyed Ryan or because she'd married someone wealthier and more powerful. She'd won because she'd walked away from a life that would have erased her, and she'd built a new one based on truth and choice and the hard-earned knowledge that she was enough all by herself. The money helped. The justice for Isabella helped. Adrian's love helped. But ultimately, what saved Elena was Elena. Her courage to leave, her willingness to learn, her refusal to let Ryan's cruelty define her worth. Years later, when people asked about her wedding day, the infamous runaway bride story that had made headlines, Elena would smile and say it was the best decision she ever made. Not marrying Adrian years later, though that was lovely too, but walking away from Ryan Caldwell in her wedding dress, choosing herself over security, burning her life down to rebuild it better. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything you thought you wanted and trust that something better is waiting. Sometimes you have to destroy your life to save it. Elena had been terrified standing in that hallway, overhearing that conversation, terrified walking out of the hotel, terrified every day after as her world fell apart and rebuilt itself in new configurations. But she'd done it anyway, and that terror, that willingness to be brave, even when her hands were shaking, that was what had saved her. Not Adrian, not her mother, not revenge or money or public vindication, just Elena, choosing to believe she deserved better than a man who saw her as a bet to win. That choice had changed everything. And standing in her life years later, successful and loved and whole, Elena was grateful for every terrible moment that had brought her here. Because pain had taught her strength, betrayal had taught her discernment, and walking away from everything had taught her that she was enough all by herself. That was the real ending, not the wedding in the garden or the trial or the money. Just a woman learning she was worth saving and then saving herself. Everything else was just details.